everyone. Welcome back to She Works Podcast. Today's guest is Sharon. Hi, Sharon.
Hi, take two.
Thank you so much for being a guest today.
Oh, thank you for the invitation. It's been long waited just to meet you and get together.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for rescheduling and coming back and coming on today. I appreciate it. So, can you tell my listeners what inspired you to become a somatic experiencing practitioner?
I would love to share. I spent my childhood in a traumatic environment. I grew up with childhood trauma. I've spent my life healing from childhood trauma. So my journey has brought me to so many places. And the last place that really moved the needle in my healing, in the biology of my body, was the somatic work. That's what really, really helped heal and bring me into a state of wholeness and wellness and safety.
Yeah, definitely. Like hearing your stories and hearing other people's stories who have been abused as children, like have inspired me to become like into law. That's what I'm going for right now. And I want to work specifically with abused children and foster care children. And a lot of people that I've had on my podcast have been abused as children. A lot of them, a whole lot, even celebrities. I'm like, wow, really? But yeah.
Well, the cycle continues because a nervous system that's traumatized, which means it now lives in a survival state of threat all the time, isn't kind, isn't happy, isn't compassionate. Everything is viewed as a threat, even your family, even your kids, and you don't know how to have a healthy relationship. So it just compounds. And what we see now in this world is not, it's an experience of traumatized people living. It's not a normal, healthy person.
Yeah, I agree. 1,000%. So how do you think that affects like when abused children grow up? How do you think that affects their I'm trying to word it right, their brain waves, like how they think. Like I'm trying to word it right to make it make sense, but I've always wondered.
So the impact on a nervous system. So there's the autonomic nervous system, which is part of the central nervous system, but the autonomic nervous system just responds, just like you reflex of putting your brake pedal down, or a sneeze, or a shiver because you're cold. The body's always keeping you safe. That's what it's always trying to do, and it does it automatically. So when you're growing up as a little baby or a young child, and there's not a caregiver there that's helping you soothe and calm and build a nervous system that's resilient, the brain chemistry sets off into this triggered danger state. So then the body sets up this state of biology that's always threatened, that always sees danger and experiences danger. So that wires up the brain and the body right off the bat, so that you have to. What happens is you usually end up getting very sick physically, mentally, and emotionally, because we weren't designed to live
This danger.
with this in this state of high activation. We're meant to be down into parasympathetic, which is a relaxing, healing, digest food, nourish the body, replenish state, which is where we should spend most of our time, in this state of parasympathetic.
Yeah. Wow. I've always wondered that because a lot of the abused adults that were abused as kids, they when they tell their stories, that I just feel so sorry for them. Like I don't know. Like I'm like I've never experienced that because my mom, she she fought other people if they tried to hurt us. So my mom is she's a very strong woman. So she's never been like abusive or anything towards us, but she definitely defended us a lot, and she still does as an adult. But yeah, I just couldn't imagine what happened to you. Like, do you want to share your story, or do you?
Well, I'd like to share some examples, and maybe not necessarily my story, but everyone's story. So when you're growing up and you have a young child, and that child needs to have a caregiver, and that child doesn't have a caregiver, its survival instinct comes in.
Yeah.
So that's the difference between a secure attachment, which means there's a caregiver there that soothes, comforts, helps that nervous system build and myelinate the ventral vagal portion, which is what we need for resilience and capacity. And that child grows up in the world secure, knowing I'm loved, the world is safe, and everything is cool. I am able to take risk and be myself. The other one that's unattached, this is the child that didn't have the caregiver, that spent most of their time alone, and they were unsafe with their caregiver, oftentimes. And it doesn't have to be all the time, but enough time, either too long or too often or too severe. So this child doesn't know when it can be safe. And this child grows up in a trauma state. The world is unsafe. I am not loved. I am not safe. And these two people live a completely different world, right?
That's true. That's true. That's true. So, when you do your one-on-one discussions with your clients, what are some of the types of like subjects you talk to them about to help them?
So with the somatic work, Brooke, we don't do a lot of talking, because talking can actually traumatize. Revisit the events, can revisit the trauma, because trauma is not an event, it's how the nervous system responded. So you can just cause yourself to be highly activated by thinking of something that's scary. So talk therapy often just re-traumatizes people because you're bringing up events. In our body-based therapy, the trauma is held in the body. It's the body that's been in a survival state. It's the body that the heart rate is pumping to fight or run, that the blood pressure is rising, that the gut is cut off because we don't need to eat, that the brain is cut off because we don't need to think. The body focuses the eyes on just the predator or what's at hand, and the ears cut out most sounds except for deep predatory sounds. And this state of the endocrine system is pumping out adrenaline and cortisol to prepare you to fight. The blood sugar is rising to give you the energy. All these states create chronic disease like diabetes, heart disease, high blood pressure, autoimmune disease. I mean, this state of arousal creates a human that is not healthy, because we're not meant to be in that state for that long.
Let me ask you a question. Like, this is aside from the questions I was going to ask you, but when I was in the hospital for depression and trying to commit suicide, they mentioned a lot about the food you eat. Does that affect you as well? Like, bring up the traumatic past from the food you eat, like unhealthy food?
So because the trauma is held in the body, and it's the biology of the body that we work with trying to remove the emotions that didn't have a chance to complete. So there's fear and terror and shame and disgust and all kinds of anger and things that were so intense that they never got felt and completed. So we work on that body aspect. We work on, what do you notice sensations in your body? What are you feeling in your body? And we build up the body's biology, which is why your question is important. And I'm completing the answer from the other one, is when our body becomes healthier, we have a greater chance of resolving and feeling and completing this emotional density and energies that are stuck in the body. The stronger the body is, the healthier the nervous system's resilience to rise up and feel and to come back down. Then the body starts to know it can heal. And so it is a process of getting a nervous system that's strong enough to complete these emotions and feelings, and everything that we do mentally, emotionally, physically to support this biology can only serve us to heal faster.
Wow, I didn't even know that. Like whenever I was put in the hospital, they was like, "Do you even eat vegetables?" Before then, I did not eat vegetables. I'm not gonna lie. People was mad at me. They was like, "You don't eat vegetables at all," and my body was weak, and I was depressed and sad and thinking of my past trauma. And I'm like, why do I keep thinking of my past trauma? And then I changed my eating habits, and you're right, it does. It affects the brain. And I was like, wow. So eating more green vegetables affects the brain. And I was like, wow, I didn't even know that at all. So I'm happy that you're explaining this.
Yeah. Yeah, everything and the body is habitual, right? And the nervous system is habitual. So if we've lived up here in this traumatic state of stress, anxiety, survival, danger, threat,
Yep.
you don't know what it's like to feel safe, to feel relaxed, to feel calm. And so we need to train the body to do that. And that's one of the first things I invite people to do is take their phone, put it on for every hour on the hour, and that's your chance to check in. And that means take a moment and listen inside. What does my heart rate feel like? What's my tension level feel like? What's my breathing feel like? How do I feel in this moment? And is there some way that I can make myself feel a little better? And I have tons of tools on my YouTube channel and stuff, but we're starting to build this relationship with the body to start to know how it responds and how it feels. And if we can have this impact and start to bring it down more often, we now build that resilience to deal with the long-held trauma that's locked inside. And it's locked in there because we didn't have the capacity to feel it then, and it would be too overwhelming. And so we're building up the ability of the body to feel it without being overwhelmed. We don't want to go back into trauma state and re-traumatize. We want to just kind of let it titrate or slowly come out where the body doesn't feel like it has to come back into its survival techniques and be re-traumatized.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. So let me ask you a question. This is aside from the questions I was going to ask you. But let's say that you are in a public setting and someone says something to you. Does that ever trigger in your mind that, like, bring back past trauma? Like, how do you deal with that? How do you handle that situation at that specific time?
Well, that is exactly what the work is about. Because when you've been triggered, and the trigger means I really overreacted about this situation, right? You know in your gut that this was way more reaction than it was about the actual thing that was happening. That means it's really about whatever happened years ago that stuck in your body, triggered an abandonment or a fear or a terror or something has shown up and you're triggered by it. And that's why this therapy is so helpful, because cognitive therapy teaches you to control and willfully change your thoughts. But when the nervous system rises up to keep you safe, trigger, you don't have any control over that.
Yeah.
Once you release the trauma, meaning we have to feel it to heal it, and we let it complete and release, now there's nothing in that nervous system to inspire this intensity because it's gone.
Okay. Yeah. Ooh. I'm gonna use that whenever I get in like situations like that. I'm gonna use that advice.
So a trigger is a gift. A trigger, when you've gotten triggered, it's your chance to say, wow, what was that about? What could that be really about? And kind of introspectively figure out what was really happening. But what we really need to do is feel that deep, hurtful emotion that is stuck there, that trauma. And we need to give ourselves the opportunity to feel it, heal it. And that takes time and that takes energy, but it's great process. When the trigger happens, this is your chance to start, understanding.
That's true. That's true. I have one question. So, how does yoga fit into trauma? Like, how does yoga help trauma and the nerve system?
So when we do yoga, um, and not so much the Western world, and I usually use more of a somatic trauma informed approach. We're getting into the body because trauma disassociates from our body. We disassociate, we numb, we we don't have choice over our body, and our body has to shut down in order to be okay in this world. So the yoga helps us to again befriend the body, to start feeling in the body in a safe place where you're not going to be triggered or somebody's not going to come in and try to take over your body. It starts to give you that permission to feel in a safe and sacred place, and you can start to bring the body pleasure centers, ability to feel with awareness and focus back on board. So it's really a chance to feel that embodiment, that deep felt sense, which is really what we lose when we get cut off from our wholeness from trauma. So we're building that back into our body.
Oh, okay, okay. Because I always wanted to understand the power of yoga. Like I've tried it, but I'm like, what is it supposed to do? But it's good that you explained it.
And there's a difference in yoga. Like you can make a movement and just move it without thinking, just willfully move it. Or you can move with intention. And that's what the trauma informed yoga is more about. Like I intentionally raise my arm with my breath, feeling my body from the deep inside, moving it. I'm not just flailing around, willing it to work hard and do what I tell you to do.
Right.
And that's kind of the difference. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So my last and final question: what advice would you give our listeners who want to hire a coach such as yourself?
So that's a good question. Wow. I would say, and what I really find is those of us that have been traumatized, we live in fear all the time. And so making even the choice to do something different is scary. So it's really great. Like I offer a discovery session. It's really great if you can get up the courage to know that there is hope and healing in a different place I can live in a different place I can be in my body, in a different form of well-being and health, and start to play with that, start to educate yourself, and even come and have an experience of the work, which is risk-free, so that you can kind of make a decision. But it's really hard for people to change the ingrained groove of being in fear and not knowing how to get out and not knowing if other people are safe. So it's really like a dance. And what I found, we're so sick of being not well that we will take that risk and chance. But I'm also getting a lot of younger people that just know life isn't supporting me. I'm not feeling my wellness, and I just want to try it. And so it's really a journey, and whatever brings you to loving yourself more, to wanting you to feel better, is always a good choice.
That's true. That's true. That's really great advice. I hope a lot of my not clients, a lot of my listeners listen to this episode and consider taking your courses or your, yeah, hiring you. I want to thank you so much, Sharon, for coming on my podcast today and chatting with me.
Thank you for inviting me, and I'm glad it finally worked out for us to show up without all the technological issues.
Yeah. You have a great day.
You too. Bye now.
Hey everyone, I want to thank you all so much for listening to my interview with Sharon. So I've linked her website below. It's creating center serenitynow.com. I don't know why I can pronounce that, but creativeserenitynow.com. And on her website, she has all of her information that she just now spoke about on there. And also how to get in contact with her is on there as well. So I hope you all listen and take this interview in consideration. And I hope you all have a great day. Bye.